Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
Everyone has at least one good story.
And some of us have stories that are just to the left of normal.
We're interested in the ones that push the boundaries of what we can perceive.
Stories that defy explanations.
Stories with an air of mystery.
Stories we might not share
for fear of being thought of differently.
But don't worry, we're all friends here. So, what's your weird story? Hello, Weirdsville. It's the What's Your Weird Story podcast, coming to you weekly from Weirdsville Radio HQ, something like that. It's me, Adam Beebe, your host of this internet radio show, aka podcast. With me is my partner in crime or in law, and anywhere in between, chaotic neutral. He is the high-stepping, dice-rolling, not chain-smoking Barry Johnston. I don't know where all that came from, but it's me, Adam Beebe. That's him, Barry Johnston. Hello, Barry.
Hey, what's going on, man? How are things over in your part of the world?
Oh, well, 2021 is here, and I think we can all agree that the first week was just a wash. So let's all move on and move up and start over on our New Year's resolutions. I, for one, did not do anything a part of my resolution list this year yet.
Yeah.
But there's many distractions all over the place. But
well, I tell you what I did. I tweaked my back. That's what I did for New Year's.
That's fun.
To bring in the new year. Yeah.
Did you tweak it doing anything fun? Or
no? Unfortunately, no. Just something stupid. This usually happens to me a couple of times a year, and this time I was not even doing anything strenuous, just bending over in a way to where my back was strained a little bit, and then woke up the next day and had a bit of a workout, and then that night my back just went just seized up on me, and it's not as bad as what it has occurred in the past, where you just totally throw it out.
Yeah,
I've done that. I did that last year, and it was awful. I was laid up for about 4 days until I was able to actually walk, but starting to feel a bit better and ready to continue with the new year.
Good deal. You need to get in some yoga classes. Maybe.
I know.
Stretch that. They actually would probably help you out quite a bit with your keto practice.
I know, and it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I need to do that. The problem is just finding, I think like most people, finding the time to do it.
Yeah.
And I could probably do it on my own. But yeah, you're right. Flexibility is one of those things that is one of the first things that you start having difficulties as you get older. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm in my mid 40s, I know you're still in your mid 20s, but I'm in my mid 40s, and your body changes. I mean, that's true. When people say that, all you young bucks out there, when people say that, your body starts to change. It's very true. So, and that's the other thing is over the holidays, I ate so much food that in a matter of 2 weeks, I got so out of shape.
Dude, me too, man.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm trying to get back on track here. I'm excited because today we have a guest that we had on before. Well, we had his story on. We had the talented Mr. Jeff Hubbard on, and he told the story of our guest. And then we were able to actually get him to come on, and we revisited his story. And then he shared a couple of news stories with us that were really quite awesome.
Yeah. A good variety as well.
Yeah.
So joining us today is Rudy. He was, as Barry mentioned, his story was featured on our last write-in special, I believe. And it's a story about his grandparents and their encounter on a road trip. And it was grandparents and his dad, but his dad was a little kid.
Yeah.
So we got that and some other cool stuff too. So I guess let's just kick right into it. Let's shift gears and say, hey, Rudy, thank you for joining us. What's your weird story?
Hey, I appreciate you having me on. And this story right here is called the Chinati Peak UFO. This is a true story. It takes place on August 6th of 1980. My grandparents were traveling from Odessa, Texas to Mexico due to a family emergency. They were on I-67. They took off at around 11 p.m. on the night of the 5th with their two kids, which is my dad and my aunt.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa, along with my grandma's uncle and brother were riding in the front seat with my grandma and the kids in the back. Between 2:30 and 3 a.m. and south of Marfa, Texas, is when they seen something strange by the Chinati Peak Mountains. They seen what seemed to be a big fire on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to them it was small at a distance, but if you could just if they were up close, then it would be big. It kind of seemed like a bonfire.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandma asked if it could be illegals trying to stay warm, and her uncle replied, why would it be illegals? Something like that will get them caught.
Right.
And my grandparents would say the fire started forming and rising up to the top of the mountain. My grandma screamed out, "Look!" And fear started to spread out throughout the car as what they described to be a tremendously fast spinning disc, shaped as if a frisbee was laid on its face with another one on top of it.
Wow.
There was there was red and yellow fire colored smoke coming from the bottom and from the top. It then started to follow them from a distance along the mountains. It would abruptly stop when they stopped, and it would accelerate when they did. At one time, they crossed over from the mountains all the way into the street in front of them. My aunt says it looked big enough to fit a car into it.
Wow.
Y'all got really scared. My grandma started crying and she started praying out loud. They had heard about the abductions happening at the time, so they were aware of what could possibly happen. Mm-hmm. Excuse me real quick. All right, I don't know. My grandpa, on the other hand, is one of the bravest men I know, and he wanted to catch their attention. So he pulled off to the side of the road and he got off the vehicle with the flashlight. He then called out for the disc to get closer while pointing the flashlight towards it, saying, "Come on, come on." My grandma got out of the car, took the flashlight from him, and told him to get his ass back in the car and to haul ass out of it.
As only a grandmother could do.
And so, my grandpa, he listened to her, got back in the car, he started taking off. The disc then slowly crossed back over towards the mountains. My grandpa said it moved like a rabbit jumping over weeds while moving over the mountain line.
Wow.
And they said it moved like a frisbee being thrown at a park.
Wow.
They said they could see little windows and lights inside, but nobody or nothing controlling it. The color of the light inside it was just like a regular light bulb, like inside your house.
Mm.
They said it made no sound, and they couldn't really see a color due to it being dark. Once my grandparents got back on the road, they started following them at a distance still. It would go up and down the sides of the mountains, and finally it went behind one mountain, and it never came back out on the other side. Approaching the ghost town of Shafter, Texas, is when the disc disappeared. My grandma, still in shock, asked her uncle if it could be witches, but he replied, "You need a whole regiment of witches to make something like that." My grandma had to deal with the jealous witch, which I'll touch up on after the story. And so she has a little history with that, and that's why she had brought it up. And they said only one truck passed them throughout the whole incident. It never stopped or slowed down. It just carried on. They weren't sure if the truck had seen it as well. I sent you the interview that I did with my grandparents as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They had heard about the Marfa lights, but in no comparison was it similar to what they had seen. Unfortunately, they had no proof. They didn't have a camera at that time. And my grandpa worked at a plant here in Odessa for 43 years, and he finally retired. He tells me that his coworkers would say he was lucky to have been able to see that. His coworkers would even try to go to the same spot around the same time to try and catch it, but no one ever seen it. My grandpa talks about an elderly man who worked at the plant who told him during World War II there was a base station in Marfa. The soldiers on the ground would see the lights, and when they would call it in for to get a plane out there to scout. The planes would see nothing in the sky, but the foot soldiers will still report seeing it, up in the sky. But that's just one of the stories. And also, back in the days, I believe I had heard on another podcast where it was back in the native days, where the natives would see the fire at a distance, and they would think it was either somebody coming, either an enemy or another tribe. But when they would go and investigate and look for the ashes, they wouldn't find nothing. But they would see the lights, and they would look like fire. But just a little history right there.
Yeah.
But So my grandparents, they have no reason to lie, and
Right.
This took place 40 years ago, and I've known about the story my whole life. Since I was a little kid, I would hear my grandparents tell it to other people, and as I just grew up, I started getting little details and putting everything together. And I recently did an interview with them, and I got into podcasts. And I started hearing other people telling their story, so I figured, I need to get the story out now that my grandparents are still here.
Yeah.
And just and I did the interview just for really like to pass on with the family. That way the story wouldn't have gone forgotten, wouldn't be forgotten. I just told myself, I need to push it more and really get it out there.
That's what I was gonna ask you is how forthcoming are they when you talk about this stuff? Is it something that they don't like to talk about too much, or do you kind of have to press them a little bit, or are they pretty open about it?
Yeah, they're pretty open about it, man. My grandma, she gets kind of scared when she brings it back up again, but my grandpa, he tells me, man, let's go out there one of these days and let's just go out there and look,
Right.
That'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, my grandpa wants to see it again, but my grandma don't. But my grandpa said that he had never seen anything like that. I asked him if he had any family growing up, if they had ever seen anything like that, and nothing, man. And he says he knows what he saw, and I believe him, man. Yeah, that's why I just got to keep that story alive.
Yeah, and Odessa, where you live, it's kind of desolate out there. There's not a whole lot. It's not a big city, right? I mean, it's pretty.
Right.
You've got a lot of sky, big sky.
Yeah, yeah. There's not too much light pollution,
right?
And especially on the interstate where they were at, or the highway on 67. There's nothing out there, man. There's
right
between Shafter and Marfa. There's nothing out there. It's just in the mountains. Is to your right.
Yeah.
As you're going towards Mexico.
Yeah.
And man. So
I think that's why we see so many sightings out in the West, because there is no light pollution, and people, you're able to just kind of be out in, almost literally the middle of nowhere, like where I live. It's once you get outside of the city limits, it's pretty dark. I mean, the sky is beautiful. It's the stars are really bright, so.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think that's something that maybe some people don't understand in larger populated areas, is that when you see something out of the ordinary, when you see a plane flying at night and it's got lights on, it can look weird. You know what I mean? I mean, those kinds of things pop out to you. So if you're seeing something like a disc-shaped object and it's putting out that kind of light, and I've heard stories before about UFOs sightings where people come in contact, and it's they're able to shine a light that is like just blindingly bright into vehicles and on the side of mountains and things like what you're talking about. So that's very. There was a one of the unsolved mysteries, the new unsolved mysteries from the last season, has a story about a mass sighting in somewhere in Massachusetts, I believe. Adam, is that right? Massachusetts, somewhere around there.
Somewhere in New England,
Rhode Island or something. And one of the or a couple of the people said that when they saw the UFO, it made the inside of the car light up, like to the point where they couldn't see anything. It was so bright.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the cool things about with you sent us the interview you did with your grandparents, and it's they're speaking Spanish, and so I listened to it, but I didn't really wasn't able to understand too much of it, but just the way that they talk, I mean, it was just, you could tell that this is being told with conviction. That's of their real story. You can tell when somebody's telling you a story, regardless, but just regardless of necessarily what they're saying, but how they're saying a lot carries a weight, and so definitely, like, you can hear it. You can hear that this is a real experience that they had, that they're relaying to you as you interview them. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Yeah, when I interviewed them, I didn't think they were going to take it like serious and really like get into detail, and they did way better than I expected, man. And I wish I would have gone with I wish I would have told them to and I'm still going to tell them to draw it out for me.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and I'll send it in, y'all.
That's cool. That'd
be really cool, man.
And I think I did catch that episode on Unsolved Mysteries, man.
Yeah, wasn't that cool? That was a story that I never heard or saw much about, and so it was really.
Is that the one where multiple people seen it?
Yeah, yeah.
Where it down where then it went down to different cities.
That's right.
And they were interviewing the people. Yeah, I seen that, man.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, man. And somebody had told me too, the fire that my grandparents seen was similar to Fire in the Sky.
Okay, yeah.
And it sounds also like a lot of like you were saying about the Native American tribes groups down there that would see stuff and describe it. They'd see the fire that was, and they described it in terms that they understood, where this is fire, and and your grandparents, how it's similar to what they were describing, and so it sounds like something's been going around there for quite a long time.
Time. Oh man, if you kind of connect the pieces to the puzzle, they're very similar and they relate to each other.
Yeah, and then of course, with the Marfalites and all of that, in the close proximity there as well. So I mean, something's gone on. Something. And it seems like it has been for a while. So
I wonder if there's something. Oh, go ahead.
I was like, I wonder what would be there if there was some resources or maybe there's a base or something down there.
There's got to. I'm thinking there's a base, man. Because if you were to see it while going down the road, it's to your right. It's just a valley of mountains, man. It just looks like something from the Lord of the Rings movies. It's just a valley of mountains, dark. It gets darker as it goes in, and you can just picture something just being there.
Wow.
Yeah, man,
that's really cool.
Really interesting. Yeah, and the way my grandpa described it was like a rabbit jumping over weeds, and it moved frisbee in the park. That really put a picture in my head.
Yeah, me too, dude.
That's cool.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Now,
man.
What are your thoughts on? Have you been keeping up with some of the UFO sightings that they've been posting on the internet here the last year, with the Navy footage, and now there's a couple of days ago somebody had posted some pictures of a really odd craft that is floating at 35,000 feet, I believe. It kind of looks, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it almost looks bat-shaped, but it's thick. You can see the density of it. It's really thick and metallic. But the story is that, at least from what I've read, is that this thing came out of the ocean and then went up and hovered, set there at 35,000 feet, and a picture was taken of it. Now, quickly, there was a story that came out that said that I know on Reddit somewhere somebody was saying that it was a weather balloon, but when you look at what the weather balloon looks like and this thing, it's two completely different objects. There's, at least in my mind, there's no way that's a weather balloon. But have you seen any of that stuff, man? And what do you think about it?
I haven't seen that one in particular, but I have been seeing like how like if I'm right, like the Navy or government has been releasing videos.
Yeah. Yep.
You know about that, and but I haven't seen that one in particular though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a relatively new one, and it was a pilot took it out of in the cockpit, and I think it was a military pilot. Yeah, and they took it with their cell phone. They took this shot with the cell phone. So who knows? We'll be
definitely look into that after this.
Yeah, definitely, definitely look at it, man, because it's really, really interesting. You know.
And like, you know, people, you know, will compare it to something else. And just like my grandpa's story, like, you know, some people try to compare it to the Marfa lights, but in no comparison was it to that.
Yeah.
This thing had to be something intelligent, you know, to know that my grandma seen it, then it started interacting with it. It just makes you think, what would have happened if my grandma never seen it, you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And
the way it acted with just in general, the whole scenario, I mean, because that's a long encounter that they had. That's way longer than most, you know, most people have some kind of an encounter. They see something and it's only for, you know, it's like a minute or two, you know, it's very brief. But they were, I mean, and they were kind of stalked or they were played with by whatever this thing was. So,
right. And it makes you think, even if the UFO thought like my parents hadn't seen it, is that their way, you know, of like catching who they want to catch or abduct who they want to abduct? They follow them and then get right in front of them, you know. And I don't know if my grandpa kind of like scared them or intimidated them when he got off the car and pointed the flashlight at it. And I'm thinking it might have made a difference, man. I mean,
right.
You know, you're right. You're very well right, because like, if you think about it, if you're out, say you're out hunting, I'm not a hunter, but I'm going to use this as kind of an idea, an illustration. But if you're out hunting and you're kind of creeping up on your prey, and it could be an aggressive prey, so not like a rabbit, but like, like a big elk or even like a bear or something, I don't know, but something that could turn around on you and, attack you and do some damage. Right. And especially if you're not certain about it. And then, but at the same time, if they've been around this long, they probably, encountered people before, and then they know that we can be very unpredictable, I would imagine.
Right.
And so your grandpa, getting out there and kind of just confronting it, probably were like, you know what, let's not mess with, these, and let them go, because, they're not going to be agreeable. They're going to be harder to, I would imagine. And I probably to put it in context of like how we would, naturally react, but still.
Right. That's interesting, man. That's neat. And it makes you think, do they hide behind the mountains? Do they hide in the clouds?
Yeah.
They must be hiding somewhere in plain sight or something,
Yeah. If they have the ability to do what we've seen on video, they can probably do anything. Yeah. And they could do things that we can't even imagine. I would imagine, stealth, like true stealth or invisibility, I don't know. But
they could, switch between dimensions for all we know.
Yeah, right. Hey, that's a nice t-shirt you got on there.
Oh, thanks, dude. It's brand new. Do you like that? It's one of the official What's Your Weird Story t-shirts.
Where'd you get that?
It's funny that you ask. I just got it off the brand new Spreadshirt.com site for the What's Your Weird Story podcast. There's no www. You just go straight to shop.spreadshirt.com/what's without the apostrophe WHATS -WEIRD-STORY, and that'll take you right there.
I mean, you can never own enough clothing.
Well, it's true, Barry. There's t-shirts for the ladies, because, they're cut differently. There's hoodies, which are really cool. There's 2 different kinds of hoodies, and there's also tote bags, so you can tote your stuff.
That's so cool, man.
So if you guys go out to spreadshirt.com, What's Your Weird Story, currently there are 2 designs, but there will be more going up very soon. So just keep your eyes out for that. And if you decide to get one of our shirts, tag yourself on Instagram to ours or Facebook. Show your love. Show us what you got. Let's see your true colors.
I got a UFO story myself, man. And
okay,
cool.
It happened when I was younger. I was maybe like 12, 13 years old, man. And it was me and my childhood friends, man, and my buddies. We were outside sitting in the back of a car, on the hood of a car.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking up at the sky. And I remember we're just looking, and we see something. We see a craft coming over us. And I remember it looking like, you remember the bottom of the District 9 UFO, the mothership?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know how mechanical it looked?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And how it was designed? That's how it looked.
Mm.
That's how it looked, man. And it just came right over us. No lights, no sound. It just flew over us, and that was it.
Wow.
Wow.
And me and my buddies, we looked at each other like, what's that? You see that? Look at that. And it just, and that's how I remember it looking, like the District 9 mothership.
I am,
wow.
Hold on a second. I'm looking up right now. Refresh my brain. Yeah. So that kind of reminds me a little bit, Adam, of something that, who's our friend over there in New Mexico?
Lonnie.
We have a friend over in New Mexico who's been on, and he has, I'm telling you, dude, like hundreds of sightings he's seen, because he lives out by NORAD, and he sees all kinds of crazy shit, man. He said he's seen aircrafts as big as like football fields, like huge crafts. Yeah. That you can't really categorize, it's like, what is that thing? And that kind of reminds me of that. And, so what did you think? Did you freak out when you saw it?
Yeah. It was weird. We were like, what is that up there? And yeah, it definitely got us by surprise. Cause it definitely wasn't a plane. It wasn't a weather balloon. Or a hot air balloon or anything like that, man. And it kind of looked like the design of the UFO from Independence Day.
Yeah, gotcha.
Kind of like that. The bottom of it, from what we were seeing, was designed like the mothership from District 9.
And was it silent?
It was silent. It didn't look too big, and it was up there, man. And it just went right over us like nothing. Mm-hmm. It was just it was weird, man. I got a ghost story, man, too, that I'd like to share with y'all.
Sure. Yeah.
This happened when I was like around 17, 18 years old. I must have been younger. I must have been like 14, 15, somewhere around there, 16 years old. I remember I used to stay at my buddy's house. We used to mow yards, and then we'd get pizza. We'd bet on a tick and tag, and we would just, chill out. And one time I was staying the night at his house, and he was sleeping on one side of the bed. I was sleeping on the other side of the bed. And he had told me that an older lady had died there before the one who was living before them. And he would tell me that he would hear things and whatnot. And, I would just, I'd be like, all right, yeah. And his parents once told me that they were laying on the bed with their heads towards the end of it, both their parents, and that they seen like a black figure with like red eyes just hover over them, just make like kind of like say like, hey, I'm here, And it scared the shit out of them. They got up, when they looked around, there was nothing. So then one night, I'm there staying the night, and his room is kind of like a long room. You enter, you go to the left, there's the room, the TV way to the back, and there's the bed. Then down to the hall, there's the doorway. Well, all the lights were off. Must have been 3, 4 in the morning. Everyone was asleep. I start hearing footsteps coming from the door, and he had a a wood, a wooden floor. So and he had like a lot of spots where you could hear when somebody was walking, because the floor would creak. So then I started hearing the creaking from the door, and it was walking towards the bed. And I said, well, somebody must be here. I said, it's either that or somebody's in the hallway. But then I felt it. I felt something, man. It started. You could hear her walking on the side of the bed where he was at. Then it went right in front of the bed, and right there is when I got scared, man. I was like, all right, something's here in front of the bed. So then I started waking up my friend, right? And I said, hey, man, there's something in here with us. And he turns around like nothing, wide awake. He's like, it's all right. Just relax. Just leave it alone. And so like it's there, and before I know it, I start hearing the creaking coming up to the side of the bed, all the way right next to me. And at that time, I put my arm up in a defensive mode. So yeah, I put my arm up, man, because I knew something was there, man. I got goosebumps all over my body, man. Even when I talk about it now, it gets me shook, man. And I heard it, I felt it. It was just standing there. I tell my buddy, man, get up, man, go turn the lights on right now, man. He gets up, turns the light on. I hear the same creaking on the floor that he made, that it made. He turned on the light, and of course, nothing.
Wow.
But that was one of the scariest things that I felt right there, man.
Were you able to see a figure? Like,
no, man, I wasn't, man.
Okay.
It was really dark.
I got you.
Really dark in there.
Yeah.
But like,
sure.
But like the way, I guess, how the footsteps sounded, it seemed like to be like a regular sized human being, like a regular sized adult.
Right.
Maybe, 5'8", 6", somewhere around there. But
yeah, wow. It's like shadow people. We've had some.
Like the footsteps too heavy, they weren't too light. It just But I mean, I felt it coming from to his side of the bed, to the front of the bed, on my side of the bed, and that was pretty creepy.
Now, was this a regular occurrence at his house? I mean, you said that they'd seen it before, but did he ever say anything like more? Did he elaborate?
Yeah, he said he heard things, not like on certain things that would happen to him, or
just like just the family itself. Like, had they seen this thing a lot?
No, man. Like, the only thing that I'd heard was a story that his mom told me about, that one time they seen that black shadow come over them. He would tell me that it was haunted because he would hear things, see things.
Right.
Then, and I spent the night after that.
I don't blame you.
Not at all.
That's funny.
But he definitely, I mean, he knew that there was, something there, but he also don't just ignore it, basically.
Yeah, like he was already used to it.
Yeah, that's just.
Yeah, it was weird. I know it couldn't have been somebody in the hallway or anything, man, because you heard those steps, in front of you, on the side of you. And,
sure.
Yeah, that was something weird, kind of.
Could you because I know you heard it, but could you feel like a presence or something? Could you you know what I'm saying? Like, did you feel it? There was something else there with you?
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah. Heck yeah. When it first started walking towards me, I remember looking that way, and it felt as if somebody stopped and stared back at me and knew I was looking at them, and they were like, all right, I'm gonna come over where you're at. And while I was thinking, hopefully you don't come over here, it started coming, man. And yeah, man. I couldn't really see nothing, but I for sure felt it, for sure.
Wow.
Man.
And like when it got close to me, that's not, I got that scared where I had to put my arm up because I thought somebody was about to grab me or something.
Yeah, that's scary.
Chill.
Yeah, but I was practically leaning over my buddy too, like just waiting, man. And I remember after that, he was like, "You all right? Everything okay?" I'm gonna turn off the lights again. I said, "You better turn that TV on, man." I think the TV.
Yeah, there better be some kind of light.
Yeah, dude.
Now,
there's nothing wrong with sleeping with a little bit of light on.
No.
Hey man, did I ever tell you about this recent thing that happened to me? I was driving around in the country and it was just after dusk. So there's a little bit of light still coming on out of the sky, but it was mostly dark. I saw this black school bus.
I don't think I've ever heard this.
Okay, so I saw this black school bus. All the windows were tinted and it started following me for about 15 minutes.
Whoa, no.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I was at work, I was making deliveries, and I just kept making my deliveries, and like it would even stop and wait for me.
Oh.
And yeah, so but it was never close enough to where I could see it or anything, but it was following me, man.
Wow. Dang.
That's just an example of another really weird story that happened to me and that could have happened to you. You don't have to have a UFO encounter. You don't have to have seen the ghost of your grandmother. You don't have to know what Bigfoot smells like to have had a weird story. Basically, what we're saying is weird covers a lot of ground here on the What's Your Weird Story podcast. And we love hearing all of your stories, whether they're spooky, they're funny, they're bizarre, or they're just short, sweet, and unexplained. Kind of like our podcast.
Now, I want to go back. Now, you said your grandmother, something about her having a run-in with witches or something. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I don't have all the details, but I'll tell you what I know for sure.
Okay.
So whenever my grandparents, same ones that seen the UFO, when they were living in Ojinaga, Mexico, my grandpa would work here in Texas, and he would leave for a few days, come work. He'd get his check, and he'd buy what my grandma needed for the kids, my dad and my aunt, or babies then. And he would bring it back to Mexico, and they lived in a little village.
Mm-hmm.
There was a main road that you could see whoever was coming down. And so my grandma always knew when he was coming. But she had a neighbor. She had a neighbor who was a lady, and it was her 2 boys and a daughter. And the oldest son was the well-behaved one, the one that would act right, that was respectful. They had and then they had the daughter, which was like the local slut, the local whore, and then and then there was the smaller one, which wasn't really like he was. I don't think he was all there. And then of course it was her, which was the witch. She would always say she was always in black. My grandma said the witch's husband was like a zombie, like would do anything that she would say. He wouldn't ever do anything. If they had grandkids, and if they would leave, she would just tell them, watch the kids, make them food, and they would leave for like a couple of days or whatever.
Wow.
But so it all started when the witch and the daughter were jealous of my grandma because my grandpa would start bringing her a lot of things. So the witch would start going to my grandma's house while it was just her by herself there and the kids. And back then, the houses were kind of separated and there wasn't too much really going on there in the little towns. And, there wasn't too much police around there and whatnot. So the witch would go over there and ask her every time for something different. And my grandma needed the stuff for my kids, so sometimes she would give it to her, sometimes she wouldn't. And when she wouldn't, the witch would get mad, and she would start talking stuff and walk away and whatnot. But of course, my grandma had to deal with her because that was her neighbor.
Yeah.
And so one day, you could see from that road who was coming into town. Well, my grandpa said that he would see the witch's daughter standing by the window naked, or in a bra sometimes, like trying to catch his attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then so then that was like that first started happening. So then my grandma says that she started getting like notes, letters saying like that your husband's gonna leave you and that you're ugly and that that he's over here sleeping with my daughter.
Wow.
And this and that. And my grandpa wouldn't pay no mind to it, to pay no attention. And then started another camp along the window doors. like burnt candles that were burnt all the way down. And then she said she started getting like that the youngest son, the one that wasn't all there, he started throwing rocks at the house, like in the middle of the night. And my grandma says that one time she got a 22, and towards wherever the rocks was being thrown at the house, she fired the 22. She said, "If you got a problem, come see me." And she said it stopped for like a day, and then the following day, that the rock started being thrown on the other side of the house.
Oh wow!
And, yeah, man, so there's something else too, man, it's just not coming to mind right now. But she said that she struggled a lot with them. She suffered a lot with them. And I wish I.
Do you know what?
Do you know
what kind of practice it was, man? Was it Santeria or something that she was practicing, or do you know?
It had to be. It had to be, man. And I guess they were trying to either like break her spirits down, and like steal my grandpa from her, And but it had to be. It had to be. And if I'm right, she had another son. She had a son that she loved the most, but he died. He died. She had 3 sons.
Wow.
And then she had one that was the oldest, that was the most respectable one. She had one that was the most that died, and then she had the little one that wasn't all there, and then she had the daughter that was a slut. And then, yeah, man, that's just a little story right there.
Wow, that's cool, man. That's awesome.
Yeah,
well,
appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be able to keep that family history alive, and
yeah. That. And I got one more story that my grandma told me, man. And I don't know like the full details, but I'll tell you what I know about it.
Before we get there, I got a couple of questions about the dealing with the witch. So like so I guess this is probably like in the 70s, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like so when did they your grandparents, I get they moved, they came over to the States, right?
Yeah.
And then
yes,
was part of the decision to move because of all of what this woman and her family were doing?
I think so, man, because my grandma had said that my grandpa had built that house brand new.
Oh, okay.
So new floors, new walls, new everything, and so it. And that's been also a combination of starting a new life, in the United States.
Yeah.
But I bet you because even till now, my grandma was shook about it. That's why she brought it up with the UFO incident. And so, yeah, it had to contribute.
Man, I would think you described, and there's probably more, but all that stuff would be super scary because I've heard of some like hauntings and like poltergeist type things where rocks are thrown are thrown at houses, and I mean, it could have been her the son,
right?
Maybe she had other outside help, who knows?
Right.
But it sounds like they definitely wanted your grandpa because he he was obviously working hard and providing well, and they wanted they wanted that paycheck.
they wanted it, man. Yeah, they were after it. And good thing, man, that my grandpa didn't fall for it. I wouldn't be here right now.
That's right. That's right. Cool.
Yeah, man. And I got one more story, man. That
Okay.
my grandma told me when she was little. She must have been like 8 years old. She said one time her and her dad were walking outside, and when they heard something, when they heard I don't know if it was like a loud. Oh no, it was they heard somebody laughing on the roof, and when they looked, it was a big bird with red eyes, and I think it was I can't even tell you, maybe like a silver color. But they said that it was just there, just looking at him, just laughing like a human being.
Oh, wow.
And that her dad started cussing it out and started throwing he started throwing something that was there within, what did she say? She started throwing. He started throwing something at it, and he started cussing it out, and it was just there laughing. She said it was there, and it was a big bird. She said that when they were spread its wings, that its wings were big, and that it flew away while still laughing like a human being.
Wow.
That's
wild.
creepy.
Yeah, man.
I wonder if there's any kind of local, lore about, that bird with the red eyes and the silver and the laughter.
Right. Well, they say the lechuzas. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
No. It vaguely sounds familiar, but then again,
the lechuzas is like a Mexican folklore. I believe it's Mexican folklore, but it's about an owl. It's about witches that turn into owls, and they go and they watch you at night. And
wow.
you have to cuss it out for it to leave.
Wow.
Man.
But this one, my grandma says it was way bigger than an owl. It was a big bird with red eyes, laughing like a human being.
Wow.
That's wild, dude.
I curse
at I believe it, man, 100%.
I curse at my neighbor's dogs almost on a nightly basis, so I can't get them to fucking leave.
I hear it, man. You got to, man.
I know. I got to invoke some sort of spirits.
Right.
and when I was growing up in middle school, and probably like late middle school or early high school, and my next door neighbor, he was I think he's part of the sheriff's department, and he had a dog, and that dog would just bark all night long, just constantly. And I got so much bad sleep in during the school year because of this stupid dog. And I come to think of it, it might have been because Barry. It could have been because you were trying to sneak into that the girl who lived behind me.
That very well could be, man.
But it could have been because you were trying to sneak in. You were sneaking into her house.
That very well could be, man.
Yeah.
I cursed that dog in numerous ways.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize, man.
I thought of so many ways of this dog, but never did. I never would. But
Yeah.
Oh,
that's great. Well, hey, Rudy, thanks, man.
Pure ecstasy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much,
man. I appreciate y'all.
Well, you'll have to come back. You'll have to come back on, man. If you get, you get another story or something,
Hey everybody, you're listening to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. You probably knew that already because you're listening or downloaded to the episode off of your iTunes or your Spotify or whatever place you get your podcast from. We want to thank you for listening. We also want to remind you to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, make sure that you get your new podcast episode every week. We'd also like to ask you to rate and review so that we can grow our audience, we can have more friends, we can have more stories. So thanks for listening to What's Your Weird Story.
Well, Rudy was so kind to get with us and come on and talk about the stuff. And he had originally written in and just wanted us to cover it, and then kind of had a change of heart and decided, you know what, I'd like to come on and maybe share this stuff. And so glad that he did, because that UFO story that he has about his grandparents is so interesting. And it really does, it highlights a point of some of these phenomena that occur when someone sights one of these objects. They start thinking about it and maybe telepathically communicating. We hear this from time to time, and the object reacts to some of these things. And so it's really quite an interesting story.
Yeah, more on that in next week's episode.
That's right.
We'll get to there shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. His grandparents' story was fantastic, and it was neat that he got to go into a little bit more depth there with with them, and then of course his story as a kid about seeing the UFO. But I tell you what, I really liked is the story about when his grandparents were still living in Mexico before they moved to the States,
right? And
dealing with a woman who was apparently possibly a witch and all the witchy things that they found. Yeah. And then of course that story about the weird cackling laughing bird. Yeah. That had to be chased off by cussing at it and throwing stones. I love stories like that, man. Cool. I love those old rich kind of somewhere between folk tale and memory or whatever. I don't know exactly, but those things that just I don't know,
they're specific really cool. To a region, specific to an area that, because I never really heard anything like that before. So really really cool stuff. And he, another, for you folks that are thinking about coming on, another great example here of a person that, was a little reluctant in the beginning to come on, but once he came on, man, he just had so many cool things to share with us, and we got that ball rolling, and it was a fun time had by all.
Indeed. Thanks again, Rudy. And next week, you'll have to tune in, and we've got Josh coming in from, is it KC? Is it Kansas City?
That's right. Yeah, Kansas City. Just right up the road.
Josh calling in. Josh has a really, really interesting story to tell, and very intense. And you guys, I mean, we're kicking off 2021 really strong with these 2 episodes for sure. But before we go out today, I just want to remind everybody about remind you about our Patreon. If you feel like supporting us there, where you can get some exclusive material. There's going to be a change to that, and it may have occurred before this episode comes out. It may come shortly the week of this episode, but we're going to change the pricing tier so that it'll be a little bit more flexible. But you'll be able to get some cool bonus material when you join that. And also to remind you that we will be changing we'll be hosting ourselves as a podcast, which means that we'll have more freedom, but that'll mean that in the near future, probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, again, you will need to unsubscribe and resubscribe to us so that you can make sure to get your episodes every week from your feed that you get wherever you get your podcast from, because we're doing a lot of stuff. We're updating the website. We're going to make it to where you can listen to episodes on the website itself, which is pretty cool. And we'll be doing a lot of other cool stuff over the coming weeks and months and this year.
Yeah, easier for us on our end, which is great. Yes. We have more control over what we're doing. We don't have to deal with a middleman anymore. And all in all, will make for a better situation for everybody.
Yeah, so big shout out to our friend Metis, D.E. Metis, for being so gracious and helpful during this process. He stayed up with me a couple of late nights this past week, walking me through problems that I, as a non-tech person, had trying to get all this stuff done, and him as somebody who all of this comes second nature to because he's been doing it for so long. I would compare it to somebody who is from the future trying to tell man, or even not even quite man, how to parallel park. It's not that easy, because like caveman is not going to understand how to drive a car. Right. So, but Metis is able to do it, and he helps us out quite a bit. I spent a near 4-hour phone call with him one night, and so Metis, thank you very much. We appreciate your help. You are the person who put us on this path, so you kind of set yourself in this motion on your own. But yeah, we really appreciate that.
Yeah,
So
thanks,
everybody,
man.
go and listen to his podcast. He's got 2 coming out. There's Medus Pod. It's MEDUS Pod. And there's also Fun Facts Friday, which is the one he does with his daughter. And that one is
That's
a blast. They're actually, they're streaming live now on, I believe it's on Wednesdays. On Twitch, and you can watch them do it. You can participate live in the show with them.
That's awesome.
And then they put the and they have guests sometimes as well there, and then you can also listen to the episodes of the podcast every Friday.
Perfect.
Because, Fun Fact Friday. So check those out. Really good, really, really great. A lot of fun on Fun Fact Friday, and Medus Pod, where it's a lot of like audio drama type stories. Really cool stuff there as well, and we owe him big time. And you know who else we owe big time, Barry?
Who's that?
Our listeners.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Our storytellers. Without you guys, this show would really, literally not be possible. We wouldn't be able to continue.
That's right.
So we really appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. And if you're new, thank you for listening to us this far, especially if you got to this far in the episode. If you're an old timer, been with us from the beginning, thank you. We appreciate it. We love you guys, and we can't say enough.
That's true.
That's
true.
Sound real. I was going for the emotional angle.
Perfect.
Okay, so thanks, guys, and remember to share us with your friends and your family and your coworkers. Yeah, roll down your window and yell at the people in traffic to listen to the podcast. Tell your enemies, tell everybody. And if you got a story to share, we want to hear it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We will see you next time. In the meantime, be safe.
Be weird.
As always, if you have a weird story, we want to hear it.
If you have a lot of them, we want to hear them all.
We can't do this podcast without your invaluable contributions.
Whether it's sharing your stories,
listening,
rating,
and spreading the word about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be safe.
Be weird.
The stories presented on the What's Your Weird Story podcast are, to our knowledge, true experiences that our guests have had. We can't take the time to research all claims made, and besides, it's just not as fun.